UU World Cup is apparently ongoing. I had a couple people asking why I wasn't talking about this tournament or like any other UU tournament. Instead, looked at the No Johns tournament. Well, the reason is simple. I was looking for NU seasonal finals. The games weren't played yet. So I was like, okay, what else is going on? Oh, look, a UU tournament? Why not? But I got some other UU for y'all today. And the games I covered actually have Hoopa-Unbound still allowed. So in a way, this is Hoopa-Unbound's final stand within the UU tier. However, this is not a Hoopa-Unbound video. This is a big Quavo video. And there's a very simple reason for that. This mon is very, very powerful, very demonic, very scary. And you're going to see exactly why this mon is so good in UU, frankly, through this video. Only 2 games actually got it in there, but I think those 2 games do such a good job of showcasing it. There's not even a Quavo in either of these, but it's okay. That it's worth talking about Quavo and its very, very strong effect on the UU tier. Now, of course, before we get too far in this video, once again, I will be reminding you to subscribe. It is free. It's the easiest way to help me out. You want to see this channel hit 10K subs and go beyond? A simple subscription, man. That's all I'm asking for. You know what? I'll ask for something else too, a like and a comment down below. I don't know what I want you to comment, so comment whatever you're feeling like today, as long as it's not rude or mean. Those comments, not about those. Now, this game, Mimilucha, Queen of a Bean. Now, one thing I did note from preview, this Quavo is an incredible Pokemon into Queen of Bean's team. Now, in terms of finding switching opportunities, if it's an offensive Quavo, it does not do that. Defensive Quavo is a lot different, though, because you're going to be able to switch in Rhyperior pretty much the entire time, as much as you want. And that's really all that matters. Like, you will generate enough free turns, and if Queen of Bean does not properly capitalize on that by pressuring you with EQ, or doubling into, like, Torn / Zadude, then it can get pretty dicey real quick, just because then you'll get your own momentum, you'll keep hazards off forever. You'll go for the big stepper, things of that nature will be happening, and it's just, it's not a very fun time. Now, on the flip side, I do think Queen of Bean's E-Tran is actually kind of annoying this game. You do have counterplay for Mimilucha, but it's not particularly good counterplay, right? Magma Storm just makes very, very steady progress. Tran will always be threatening burns, even on Quavo really once. I mean, once it reveals U-Turn, obviously you could threaten that with Flame Body. But let's get into this. Also, Hoopa is here. Hoopa will get a kill, I promise. Torn Lead versus Ripe is the freest U-turn of your life right into Big Quavo, and immediately we do see this damage. It is very bulky Quavo. You should not be taking only 44. Obviously, Quavo definitely getting like 60 there, but the bulky Quavo is here, and it is going to be a problem because it's going to check Tran, kind of. You still have to care about Burn, like we said. It's also going to check the Scizor. It's going to just potentially check Zarude with Terra, as we saw in a SCL video we did. A very scary Pokemon here. Quavo once again comes out. This time it doesn't have to spin, though, so it gets to Yui. We see Jumentum picked up from Mimilucha. You get rocks for free here. There is no removal on Queen of Bean's side unless she has the worst Scizor set ever seen. Yep, default Scizor is terrible. Do not use it. I will cry. Wisp Miss there sucks. You always want to hit that Willow. I mean, now you get nothing out the turn. But you do trap the Claude, which is actually, like, really, really solid. Unfortunately, you then miss another Willow, which sucks, because now you take 91. Fortunately, you live, and Earth Power Fallout does kill. But imagine if this Tran, instead of being at 6%, was at about half health. Half HP Torn would still check the Torn, or half HP Tran would still check the Torn. So that sucks. Ripe comes out here, throws off an EQ. Sinistcha takes nothing because it's Mon's big body. I think the Quavo came out earlier, by the way, just to always be able to threaten spin, but also, scout out any random coverage. Like, if that Ripe random move for Ice Punch or Heat Crash, been kind of doomed. Anyhow, Torn comes out of the Zor. It's gonna once again just U-turn on out. Actually, I lied, it knocks. Guy like me U-turn there, but you know what? Not everyone can be a guy like me. Shouts to me more, by the way. Been using this music a little bit more lately. Not bad. Let's spin though. Now you're kind of pressured to the roost a couple times. If I was Queen of Bean, I would have just started EQ spamming because I'm very, very greedy. And this Quavo right now is sitting at a crisp 6 roosts. I wouldn't mind making that number go down a little bit more. Just make them big a bit, Not like step kills you anyway. Though, I do understand when they keep Rhyperior very, very healthy at this point of the game, just because you lost your Tran for nothing. Not nothing, but nearly nothing. The Cloud wasn't a huge threat of this game in my view. So it kind of does end up meaning you need to keep Ripe around just to check with Torn. And yeah, Torn once again gaining momentum as Quavo comes out. It's just going to keep roosting more than likely. At a point you do get to where you could just step with Quavo, but as long as Torn is around to outspeed you at +1, and I mean Hell's a Rude will as well, it's not really a lot to gain from stepping. So it's better to just keep the Quavo around. Plus, you have slowly beaten down this Rhyperior anyway. Now here I thought Mimi played it really weirdly safe for no reason, other than just wanting to guarantee a win. And I don't like it when people do that. I want to see you go for the Bleak Wind. It would have killed. But they do go for the U-turn there. Works out well enough for me. Anyhow, we are back. The Torn U-turns. Drud coming out there and then doubling, like, quite literally doesn't end up mattering at all because, well, it has to switch. But you had to go to something, right? Like, I mean, that point is just you're U-turning because you got momentum and you got a sack, so you sack with Ripe. And you end up with this sequence here. Ends up being Hurricane. I thought this was very funny here. The Hurricane doing less than Bleak Wind was certainly funny. I don't know how that happens. I'm guessing just really weird rolls, but it's not like there a big difference in damage anyway. Very nice play here from Mimilucha there. Not fearing this being like Scarf's a Rude, which I don't know. I think personally you could always fear it, but the team does have Keldeo plus Torn, so it's not exactly a slow team at all. Hoopa picks off a kill, like I said it would do, and then Queen of Bean forfeits. So Mimilucha picking up the win here. At the end here, the boots Keldeo. It probably was just 4 attacks since it revealed flip turn. It probably is never breaking Sinistra. It may have had Air Slash or something. I guess I could have tried doing something like that. I don't know, maybe if it was Terra. Maybe you could have gotten rid of the Torn like a Terra Blast. But then you don't have coverage for this. Unless your Terra Blast Ice and you have coverage for both, but then you still have to deal with the vibe check of Scarf Hoopa. It was pretty doomed. Like, even Scizor, I don't think Scizor is going to be doing enough long term to really win this game. Plus, still got to bypass the Quavo somehow, and if you're not CC, you have no way of really doing that. And Torn could always just, of course, be Terra Electric or Water or anything else that resists Scizor's BP. And then you're pretty good. Helm versus Spitfire. I thought this game was very funny for a few reasons. But before we get into those reasons, of course, we just look at preview. I think Helm is a pretty solid matchup, though, just having the speed advantage very clearly at preview. Of course, Spitfire does have the low kicks, so there is always a way for it to not matter. You vibe check everything on that team with a strong first impression or sucker punch. It's low kicks on HO, so it's always kind of tough. Usually they're swords dance, but they're not always swords dance. It can just sometimes be 4 attacks, and you say, well, low kick's good mon, so I use it, smile. But Ogerpon is notoriously good into hyper offense, and this isn't really any exception. The one caveat to it is this Enamorous Theory is kind of annoying, and so you do have to figure out a way to deal with that. I do think if this mon gets some, like, attack boosting, and you chip away at a Nam with, like, say, I don't know, Hydreigon? Or even, like, Torn, maybe, if somehow Torn can, because let's be real, Torn, there's not mons that switch into Torn on this build. Maybe you could find a way to do something with the Ogerpon there, and then just run away with the game, though you also always have to be leery of this guy in the back, so, yeah. Basically, the TLDR, I think this Enamorous is kind of scary. I think this Ogerpon's pretty scary. Anyhow, that's how I fought at preview. But then turn 1 happened, where this Mon took 57 from an Ivy Cudgel to set a spike. Only then get Sword Stanced on, as they switch. Take a billion with their Petchy with the Ivy Cudgel. Easily does not kill this. Petchy dies. Spitfire used to rule the world. The Torn U-turns here. So that was a very funny first 5 turns. Blastoise comes out here, letting in the low kicks. Low kicks doesn't actually do anything to Stoise here, but apparently the threat of it doing something was enough because Helm switched. And then it reveals Rocky Helmet Ogerpon. So I just want to summarize this first 6 turns. Corner Pawn doinks this. Pecharunt gets doinked. Corner Pawn did its job, so it stays in as a sack, and it is revealed to be Helmet. So it was like the worst Mon ever. I don't even think this is a like actual hyper offense. I think this is just an offense team. An offense team with Spike's Ogerpon, which makes it a lot worse. At least I think it makes it worse. Maybe not, but I don't know. I'm not really a fan of these sets. I think the team probably would work better as a like pure HO, and maybe it is intended as a pure HO. I just like Spike's Ogerpon, phooey, you know. Trying to think if there anything else I had to say about that. No, not really. So Driller comes out after picking up the KO. Also, this switching out with the Fear of Knock was probably smarter than I'm feeling like it was at the time, just because it means you don't take the Chippy Chip. Plus, if that went for like Terra Bug randomly to Fimp you, I mean, you were taking a million. Anyhow, Torn tanks the step fine enough. The problem is then they went to Drill on a CC. The predict here is obviously that this would Terra Steel, so they CC there to hope to catch it. And then they decide, oh, you're not Terra Steel. So they reveal the Axle. Very solid coverage move. Gets rid of the grass types for you. And he Aqua Steps here, predicting Stoys maybe to want a Terra, but it doesn't. So then he kills it with CC. And yeah, look at all the Moxie this bird's got. And then they go Dragon, and they finally do Terra. They Terra Poison. They end up living the CC. Not comfortably whatsoever, but they live it. KO Quavo with a resisted Dark Pulse because that is 3 defense drops, and this is a Hydreigon after all. And then Poltegeist comes out. There being no reason for it to come out here. Oh, actually, no. This guaranteed, by the way, is not first impression. You would have just gone to it there. But they go Polte. And they Shell Smash up, didn't KO with a Stored Power. Which makes me wonder what this thing's set was, because they did just Shadow Ball for the KO. Which definitely did 33. Or 27 at the time. So, I mean, keep in mind, these aren't like misplays. I'm just kind of like speaking aloud where I'm like, huh, that's interesting. This definitely feels like it was something you could have done instead. Why didn't this happen? But yeah, this Quavo popped off real hard. I think probably Helm, again, it naturally comes down to what their Terra types were. I think if they were only able to Terra with Dragon, they may have needed to go to Dragon earlier though. Because instead they sacked a couple more Mons. So, like, the Drill sack here is obviously, like, whatever. But I think you need to go Dragon on this turn instead of a Torn, maybe? But I think at the same time, the issue you face is the Quavo doesn't have the drops you want. And if this mon's coverage is, like, Flamethrower, Dark Pulse, Flash Cannon, naturally there's nothing you can really do at the start. And so you're forced to try to get chips. They go Torn because they're like, okay, well, Torn won't die to most moves. Triple Axle is kind of uncommon on Quavo. You normally see like Taunt or Knockoff, or even like a Terra Blast angle. Terra Blast would have packed this thing up. As you see, nothing else had Terra'd yet. But it's kind of like Torn, generally speaking, would be the cleaner play. I think maybe even going Stoys first made a little bit more sense. But if Stoys dies guaranteed to CC at +1, then it's also kind of just toast. Basically what I'm saying is, it's a whole bunch of stuff that came down to you know, sets that I don't know. And calcs that I'm not going to take the time to do right now. Anyhow, Tuthur versus Drud. I do really like Tuthur's team. It's just very standard looking. The only caveat to it is I feel like it's standard looking for like a couple metas ago. And I don't think this team is bad at all into this meta. It's just definitely something I would have used months ago. Back when Okidogi and Hoopa were in the tier. Like pre-Weavile even. This feels like something I would have used before the Weavile shift. Back in, I guess that was September. Wow. Because I remember showing Eternally like some Thunderous Low Kick stuff and be like, yeah, I think this core is probably just cheating. Yeah, no, I would have used this shit back when Zapdos was in UU even, man. Oh my god. But I really do like it. It's a comfort type of team to me. You got like Rock's Tink, Spindrill, which opens up AV on the Tornadus. Strong little core here, and then Slowking being generally pretty decent. The problem is, of course, Slowking right now kind of sucks. And I use that term, of course, loosely. Slowking is not a bad Pokemon in UU. It's just pretty clearly at one of the lower points that it's hit this generation. And big reason for that's Manaphy. Manaphy is just really good in the Slowking builds. And of course, other dark types have been super common. Even with Hoopa gone, there's still several super viable dark types, and those will also put a damper on Slowking's overall effectiveness, especially since a lot of them are physical and Slowking, well, I think it's not really a physical wall, but kind of intended to be one, I guess. So this type of game, for example, kind of showcases why Slowking is pretty doo-doo, because Manaphy plus Weavile, hell, plus Ogerpon plus Thundy, I mean, there's just so many mons that just beat it up. Like, I don't know what Slowking is really supposed to do this game, other than, spread status as best it can, really. Drud's team is interesting, because I want to call it hyper offense, it's just, there's a Tinkaton, and you don't really see Tink on HO in this type of manner. But regardless, it is a very hard offense. It could be like, maybe AV Torn still, like Boots Taunt Torn. I could see that if you're not trying to go balls to the walls offense. And then it still gives you the Tail Glow, Manaphy, or even, I guess, Take Heart if you want to be that type of guy. It gives you your Thundurus. You could be set up. You could be Pivot. Either kind of works here just fine. Gives you your Weavile to be, you know, Swords Dance, because that's all they're going to be. And an Ogerpon could kind of just do whatever it wants. It could be SD. It could even be Spike on this team. And I wouldn't really necessarily question that much about it. Yeah, I honestly feel like either works out quite nicely. And as I said too, I think this Manaphy is just kind of a problem, because I do see a world where the Ogerpon gets a knock on the Torn, for example, or even the Torn's exchange knocks, and then Manaphy just kind of goes stupid if Thundurus ever dies. Even if Thundurus doesn't die, you still have to play around the Terra threat, and that can make it really complicated. Plus, these two I think just will overwhelm Tink long term, and it works out pretty nicely for Drud. So Torn T led with into the Slowking. You can always U-turn on out, and very nice early turn by Drud here as well, going Thundurus on a Thunder Wave. It gives you a free turn to attack as Drill comes out, and he immediately reads the shit out of Tuthur. Focus blasts this Frenchman all the way back to France. Sends him packing back to times where we're not internet and he could not play Pokemon Showdown. Very nicely done. And gets Tinkaton of his own and on the Sludge Bomb. Just very nice early game pivoting. Gets Drud a solid lead early, as he's also able to get his rocks, potentially limiting the Tornadus now long term because there's no spinner. And even starting to get some item displacement with the knock. You'll see this happen a lot. There's a lot of knocks used. Ogre goes out of the chili there. Torn comes out. We do see it is AV, so this rocks are nice. Obviously, at this point for its HP, it doesn't matter too much because regen will just keep you at this amount. But now if Torn takes chip, it's not going to get nearly as much benefit from that regenerator as it could have otherwise. Thundurus comes out here, and we also see Thundurus get knocked too, so that's going to be super important, especially as you look to see if the Thundurus from Drud can do stuff, or even just Manaphy. You want this one pressured a lot for when you eventually try to set up. Good play from Tuthur there, though, staying in on the Ogerpon's U-turn, giving himself some extra momentum with the chili. Gets out his Torn here, and it's a very funny turn because you're most of the time just U-turning anyway. But he does go for a knock. Trying to get rid of Thundurus' boots, even though it looks like he's probably never getting rocks. I don't know. I mean, this Tink's not really made an effort to come out yet. And now the Torn's exchange hits. We will see who plays chicken first, pretty much always, and it is Drud. Unfortunate U-turn there in my view, just because you know you're going first. But it kind of is what it is if you're tired of playing the exchange there. And then Ting gets sacked to the low kicks U, which is fine. He does give Tuthur his rocker here. This potentially sets up rocks. So he goes Thundurus, trying to make sure to dissuade it as best he can with a threat maybe of a plot. Because he hasn't revealed Volt Switch yet, so you always have to be cognizant of that. Thundurus trades the Sludge Bomb. Now the nice thing, of course, here for Drud, even though he got poisoned, the opposing Thundurus is essentially dead now, and he actually pivots in his Thundurus on a, or not his Thundurus, Ogerpon on a T-Bolt, which I found pretty powerful. Probably predicting that Tuthur would think there was a switch to the Torn there to pivot on the Sludge Bomb and then pick it off with a Heat Wave. Pick off as in this with a Heat Wave. No, not you. You. So Ogerpon ends up working out real nicely there for him. And he is able to go for a Kujale here. Will never lose his item because of how Pickpocket works. Cudgel doesn't make contact, so you cannot goink that. And he actually goes for double Kujal too. And gets rid of the Thundurus just with his Stealth Rock. And you also see he's Encore. So he's probably not Swords Dance on that set. Probably just Encore 3 attacks. Elects to sack the Ogerpon there because he believes it's done enough. His Torn comes out. Threatens to revenge Low Kicks with a Bleak Wind, so he knows he can always U-turn. Gets his Thundurus out. Now this is just free Thunderbolts. There's nothing Tuthur can do. Thundurus will be getting a KO pretty much always now versus the Tinkaton if it's out, and low kicks. I mean, low kicks can always sucker punch. I think he's like still putting immense respect on the threat of a what's it called? Nasty Plot, personally. Nah, not really anymore. I think he just switched because he didn't want to deal with any bullshit. And yeah, man, if he crits the Tink with a Surf there, that definitely mattered. And then, man, if he yums up the knock from low kicks and gets a huge hit back off on it. Game really close still in terms of Pokemon left, but I promise you this game's not actually close. And the Weavile will be coming soon to collect the debt. Actually, no, it doesn't even have to, because you've got your Torn out here, and you literally will be just picking up KOs. Now, this turn from here was very funny to me. Once again, for the sole purpose of, man, just go for the damn move that will KO the Torn. Go for your Heat Wave again, man. Knock obviously kills as well, though, and because he knows he'll never die from full to the low kicks anyway, he feels good about making that safe play. And then just for fun, why not? The turn... We get one more turn to the battle because they both decide to take their contact lenses out. Very nicely done. Very nicely done, champs. Last game. Mada with the ugliest stall I've ever seen. And I mean that derogatory. That's derogatory. His team looks doo-doo. And no, not because it looks bad, but because there's just a ton of ugly Pokemon, man. Come on, Donphan, Toxapex, Skarmory, get these ugly... Send them away. Send them to a tier I don't have to see them in. Feliburn, meanwhile, into the team where the Soul Psychic Resist, and I'm not counting Latios, or I meant to say Dark Resist, bro. What am I going on about? I was thinking about Hoopa when I said that, and then I'm like, oh, well, Latios isn't a Psychic Resist because Hoopa has Dark moves. But I wanted to talk about Dark Resist because I'm talking about Pheasantipity, and I'm like, oh, the Soul Dark Resist is weak to Psychic, so shaboing. My mind is an enigma, and yeah, like I was trying to say. He's running into a team with Double Dark, where the Soul Dark Resist is a Fez. Hoopa will have coverage for this Fez, and it will utilize this coverage to the full extent of the law. So, from preview at least, Hoopa should 6-0 this team, like, pretty effortlessly. It's a terrible matchup for Mada in that regard. And Weavile even could get a little bit out of hand if Hoopa's able to somehow soften up Pex even. It's just kind of tough, right? Because you're assuming Hoopa somehow catches Pex switching in, which probably means Fez is gone. So, it's a little bit tough. Otherwise, it's like maybe Conkeldurr forces Chip onto the Pex, or maybe Torn even. A lot of things have to go right for that Pex to get into the position that I was alluding to there. And keep in mind, I'm not even talking about how Mada can win this game. I think it is like that matchup is like pretty terrible. Double Dark into Fez when SD Weavile kind of just breaks Fez as well. It's tough. Like, you still have Counterplay to Weave, right? You have Skarm, which Weave needs to have a good amount of chip on to beat it down with +2 triple axle. You've got Pex as well, which will not just fall over to a +2 knock. So there's that bar you have to meet too. It's just, I don't know. This game from preview just looks so much more favored to Feliburn. Even this Conkeldurr, bro. Like I mentioned in yesterday's video, the magical what if Guts Conkeldurr. If that comes to fruition in this matchup as well, then yeah, I mean, it looks really damn strong, and I don't think Mada has a whole lot that they can do about it. And yeah, Fez led into the King. Slowking is here just to generate momentum the entire game and maybe get a Scaldburn. That is essentially it. So it's a very safe lead, plus nothing on Mada's team is going to threaten this anyway. So free T-Wave on the Fez is pretty cool. You can just chilly out the next turn. You also get a nice guaranteed slow pivot, even with the Fez being paralyzed, which is pretty cool. As Pexi Wexa comes out, Conk always gonna come out. Just gonna activate that orb, man. Get that orb going. Skarm comes in, takes 37 from the knock. Actually, ends up being Covert Cloak as well, which, I'll be honest, I don't know what Covert Cloak Skarm is for off the top of my head. I just can't think of anything. I'm sure there is a relevant use for it, but I'm not coming up with it. Anyhow, that is good chip on Skarm. I mean, that quite literally does put it in SD Weavile range, which is pretty funny to have achieved this early. And now we're at the part of the game where I might start skipping turns, because I won't be honest with y'all, this early game was very uneventful. you see just a ton of repositioning pretty much for the first 20 plus turns, where it is constantly this Excadrill trying to come out to keep Donphan's rocks away, but also this Donphan trying to keep coming out to keep this Excadrill's rocks away. And sometimes Feli stays into EQ, other times he rocks up. It's kind of just eh. And I think this was maybe the turn I was thinking about, where it's like he rocks and then on the spin he Qs. It's just, there's really not a whole lot intelligent thought to give here to y'all. So like, you know, you got the Torn coming out and it just gets pivoted on. And then the King comes in, so the Ditto has to pivot, but then the King pivots. And it just gives Drill again, so like, I can't make this interesting for y'all. The most I could say is subscribe if you still haven't already, and go click on my advanced GG link down below. Perhaps go pick up some Joey Juice while you're at it. It helps me out a ton when you do that. This Focus Blast miss may seem bad, but I think the Skarm's actually pretty heavy Spadef, because later on this one takes like 31 from a Focus, which I just feel like Torn's Focus Blast should do a little bit more to Skarm, considering how piss poor Special Bulk is. Which also makes me think, by the way, that Weavile breaks it a lot more reliably than perhaps I was thinking at the beginning. But yeah, still, like I said, about 20 turns of just constant Drill, try spin, Donphan try spin, also rock, and you see there the 31. Latios comes out, and yeah, this is why I was originally saying when I wasn't even recording, by the way. This Latios makes this team more of a semi-stall, I guess, than a full stall. Latios ends up being just purely offensive, so we're not talking about something like max HP, Calm Mind, or T-Waving Dude. No, just a crisp 62 to Slowking. Very humble. Drill comes out here in the Lottie, because again, it's -2 special attack. I may as well spin. So Fan comes out, rocks again. It's like, it's the same damn thing. It's just the same thing happening the entire time. This is where the battle gets interesting, though. Ditto comes out on King and gets burned. That is pretty big, because now if you're trying to trace Weavile's stat boosts, you still keep that burn on you. So you're not actually threatening Weavile whatsoever. So that mon becomes a lot more unlocked to just boost up and win whenever it decides that conditions are met to where it can break through Pex and Skarm. So very interesting and worth keeping an eye on there. Drill decides to spin versus Pex despite the Surf threat, as Hoopa finally comes out, and immediately he does make a good read here, Psychics the incoming Pexy Wexy. And unfortunately for Feli, this Pex ends up Terra Darking. Now, fortunately, he did switch to Scout it, but now there is actually like a Hoopa check. You can always Focus Blast it if you've got it, but you're not killing. Actually, no. Well, no, you're not. Given how much Psychic did, you're not killing. But yeah, like I was talking about too, with this burn, I mean, you even see that knock, it does like nothing. And now Weavile can just immediately come out in Sword Stance. There is nothing you can say or do to stop me from boosting up if I'm this Weavile. Ding ding bring! I think that's kind of what the noise is it makes. Triple Axel easily dispatching this Pheasantipity, sending it all the way back to the doo-doo tier. And then the Skarm gets crit there by Triple Axel. I don't actually think it mattered, but it may have. But I'm also pretty sure that last Axel was going to do enough to pick it off. Maybe. Knock there is certainly good, because it means now when you Triple Axel this Pex, you don't have to take Helmet Chip. Unfortunately, he went for 0 Axel, so he didn't even get he didn't need to knock. You see? It wasn't worth knocking. Kong comes out there. Latios, good double. Not even a double, but just good switch there. Hoopa comes out, though. Now you got to switch again still if you're Feli, because you want to get that good positioning. So he gets Weavile out versus the Pex, and I do think you could Sword Stance up here if you really wanted, but it's kind of tough to say how effective it is, especially with that Toxic threat. You may just still not break Pex. But now Conk finally gets out in a sequence where it gets to do stuff. So Conkeldurr, it's kind of depressing to call this good when it's a 3-hit KO, but Conkeldurr getting up a very good 3-hit KO on this Donphan. Also, I'm noticing a lot more Conk usage lately in UU. I'm kind of wondering if Conk's going to do that thing it does almost every UU gen, where inevitably it just becomes one of the best mons in the tier. Slowking actually revealed, not Slowking, Latios actually reveals that it's a substitute variant, so that was interesting. The problem is you're never actually breaking through, and Weavile's Triple Axel, and he already Terra'd, so he can't turn into a Steel type randomly to avoid death via Weavile. As Pex now comes out, Once again, Conk can switch in, and at this point, Conkeldurr will be picking up all the life insurance money. You may think you have a chance, but you don't. Also, he definitely does not think he has a chance. He had 2 months left. This Conkeldurr is at full. No. So the opposing Conk goes for the Facade. It does not kill. Drain Punch, Slurp, Slurp. Give me that HP back. Guy like me goes Drill here always because I preserve the 6-0. But there's a Mach Punch. And Drill probably died Facade from 42. There's no probably. It died. So as y'all can see, Big Conk may be coming back to UU. I mean, at the end of the day, right, it's a Conkeldurr, man. It can only be so bad. Like, we look at UU right now, man. Look at Conk checks. I hope you're noticing a trend in terms of the fight resists in this tier. They're not very plentiful. You got, like, King, which isn't really common right now. Pechi, which may just be rising to OU, so that's not even necessarily a thing. Sinistcha, which also isn't actually common, really, in UU, I mean. Dirge, which... I feel like Dirge probably takes way too much from Knock to really be a constant or a consistent Conk check. And so, like, Torn, which is definitely taking way more than you want it to. So, anyhow, maybe Conkeldurr Resurgence is real. I hope all y'all enjoyed, though. Once I get, like, actual days off from work, I'll do some actual PS Lives. The last few days, I've been literally coming home or recording, like, early before work, just doing something to get a video for y'all. Because, you know, I know y'all are getting your daily Rabia, so I try not to deprive the wonderful people at home watching. So, appreciate the patience. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.